Hello, I'm Dina, technology reporter at Bloomberg and Bloomberg Seattle bureau chief. With me are Chris Bruzzo, chief experience officer at EA, and Adam Boyce, co-CEO at Iron Galaxy Studios. Thank you both for joining me, and thanks to our audience. So since we're talking about the future of gaming, let's start with the latest buzzword, the metaverse. Is the whole idea complete hype, or is it a concept that will have a big impact on gaming? Adam, why don't we start with you, and then Chris, we'd love to hear your thoughts.
Sure, Dina. I love the concept as a whole, right? I mean, we've been at Iron Galaxy busy announcing our new game Rumbleverse last week, so the metaverse is such a big, hairy, sort of audacious goal I think the industry has as a whole. I think the part that I've seen a lot of excitement around is just everything magically and fluidly moving from one experience to another. I think the core concept I think is very exciting and very endearing, but I think how it all works together, how it interoperates, how we bring concepts, ideas. We know with a sort of a flat image, we can move that from experience to experience. But the idea of like different parts and pieces, whether it's weapons or a pair of Air Jordans flowing freely from Battlefield to Call of Duty, I just am not sold all the way there yet. Understanding how all the underpinnings work, I'm sure Chris has figured it all out over at EA. But no, I think it's a fantastic high concept. I just as a game developer, we're still trying to figure out, how to just ship games during COVID. So I think the next aspirational step is trying to unpack what's possible within the metaverse.
Chris, what do you think?
Well, I mean, I have a rule for new things that come up. I call it the VNBA rule, which is, has Gary Vaynerchuk tweeted about it in the last week? And if the answer is yes, then you go and check to see if an NBA player has invested in it yet. And if the answer is yes, then I collect 10 people and we run like crazy to go sort of build something in that space. That's kind of what happened to esports. It was like, let's go get esports. And then people were like, make a game for esports now. How about make a great game, have it be followed by a lot of people, create amazing experiences that people love to play and share with others. And that's actually what we do in gaming. So we facilitate massive social interactions from communities of interest inside our games. And so this idea of a metaverse is really very familiar to us. And I think it's going to continue to be interesting. And I think we're going to get more democratization of content and services and all kinds of interesting things. And we've got stuff happening in The Sims and in our Skate franchise and in FIFA and in Apex and in Battlefield, all places where people can create and do unusual things or express themselves in a very, very unique way. All of that is early indicators of where this whole thing might go. But let's just be careful about the hype cycle.
Well, and can I ask you, because it feels like both of you are kind of going around the same sort of issue, which is if you look at augmented reality, virtual reality, metaverse, whatever sorts of words you want to use to call these new gaming trends, how do you make those games and experiences high quality? Because when I talk to gamers, I hear from a lot of gamers who just cringe at the whole idea of seen past half-baked things with no execution and these kinds of concepts.
Chris, it's hard. You got to start. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I was going to say it's really fascinating because you hit it on the nose there, Dina. We really have to start with how it feels to the player, right? Think about player first, player centric first. How to build social experiences, engaging experiences that feel great, whether it's controller input or virtual reality, augmented reality in sort of real space or mixed reality. I think if it feels great first, that's sort of the starting point. And then Chris touched on this too, right? Building a community in a universe that people want to visit is the hardest thing to start out with. And then from that point on, what can it become later on? I think this idea of building a bunch of little villages that will somehow sort of all cohesion bring together in one space, I think is kind of aspirational. But how do we do it now? In some ways, and Chris, you reminded me of this. I mean, when I fire my console, I feel like I'm already in the metaverse because I have access to all these different games and ideas. I don't need someone else to sort of be able to push all those experiences on me. But to me, it's all about the players first. How does it feel on their controller, their input device? And then we go from there of creating sort of compelling worlds that they want to visit over and over again.
Yeah, I mean, I am Bodhiwan. That's my gamer tag. And I've been Bodhiwan for a lot of years now. And I've invested in that tag and in how I show up in all those spaces. I show up differently in different games and different spaces. I spent a lot of my time at work, leading and being out in front, have to go live on Bloomberg with you, Dina. So when in some of the games that I play, I am just like the most meek follower. I'm just like, whatever you guys want to do. It's so much fun to just play that role. So honestly, this is why we make games. We want to create these immersive worlds where people can try things out and they can experiment. The Sims is like, basically, that's what it's all about, is to explore alternative realities. So I think it's fun. I think it's going to continue to be fun. I think the pandemic accelerated it. And I think we're going to find that there are very large communities. I mean, in some of our games today, we have over 100 million people already inside the community coming to our games on a weekly basis, connecting with each other. So Metaverse feels like it's kind of just a logical extension.
Yeah, Chris, during Thanksgiving break, my son and I ended up playing 12 hours of Lawnmower Simulator, where we're literally just mowing lawns for an hour at a time. You're absolutely right. It's more about playing together and how do we sort of evoke that social experience in a virtual world.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. In the metaverse, Adam and his son will mow your lawn for a fee, I assume.
Over and over
for a small
again.
fee.
Yeah.
So the gaming industry has been changed dramatically by the creator economy, by this ease of tools for creating games, mods, Minecraft servers. Everyone spent the weekend patching their Minecraft servers, but there's all of this innovation that individual developers, individual players can bring upon the gaming industry now. How has that changed things for a big company like EA and an independent developer like Iron Galaxy?
Okay. Well, I mean, to be honest, it is another beautiful activity for humans to engage in. I think humans are just so interesting, and you give them space, and they do amazing things that you weren't expecting at first. So this whole concept of like, now we're going to create stuff, and we're going to take things that even weren't meant for creating, and we're going to do extraordinary things with them, it makes me marvel at humanity. And so the fact that games are now playing them is just one of the things you can do. Watching is probably going to eclipse the amount of people who spend the amount of time in the actual interaction of playing a game. Is going to probably be eclipsed by the number of people who spend hours watching a game played or watching other people play games. And then creation is yet another dimension of that. And I think the whole thing is powered by social interaction. So when people get to interact with each other, then they come up with all kinds of cool things like exchanging goods or making gifts for each other, or developing galleries of things and showing off their talents. So it is to me, the way we think about it, electronic arts, it's another entire vector of experience for us to be able to explore for many, many years. And we've got the next generation coming up. Frankly, they expect to have tools that allow them to create. And so it's both an opportunity and an obligation.
Yeah, that whole entire democratization of content creators has been fantastic, right? We see it really started with that ubiquitous access to all different engines and capabilities to build things. And now we have people that are hobbyists. If we think about when I was kids, and Chris, you were a kid, we would just build Legos and have a little, in the air, a little battle. Now kids are building mechanics to be able to sell different modes within Roblox and Minecraft to each other and actually earn, many people become game developers full time from these tool sets that they have access to. So it's super inspiring. We're a smaller independent studio. We still have 240 people, which is quite a bit. But looking around the workspace and even having people that came from that community that then applied it to come work at Iron Galaxy Studios is fantastic. I love it because it means that any new idea can come from any place, from any background. All you need is a computing device to be able to start that development, whether it's just an iPhone or an Android device or a small little PC or laptop. I mean, that is so inspiring to me because it means that the greatest new idea can be coming from anywhere at any time. And that is just pure excitement for us in the development community.
Mm-hmm.
But given all of that expansion and all of the kind of boom in independent studios, should we expect to see more consolidation in the industry? Should we expect to see more mergers, more acquisitions?
Yeah, what do you think, Adam?
Yeah, I mean, it's
Adam,
obviously
let me ask you.
Sure.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead. No, I was going to say, tell me if you expect more consolidation, but as an independent studio, how do you think about whether to sell or go it alone?
No, that's a great question, Dina. It has been happening, especially more aggressively over the past 2 years. I mean, we see from all the reports, all the money sort of flowing in from various sources to create that consolidation. I think that one of the biggest things is the battlefield has changed. No pun intended, Chris. But it's now the freedom and independence of those studios that do get acquired and are permitted to build their own visions after the acquisition is a really unique aspect of it that didn't exist 10, 15 years ago. Before, you were sort of conscripted into a large unilateral command and control organization, and now a lot of that independence is still given to the studios to build and to persevere. And we see that with even Hazelight, the team that made It Takes Two. I mean, they just won the TGAs for best overall game, and it's an inspiring game that came from a studio that sort of another publisher was involved with. And to me, that's pretty inspiring. As long as we keep that and the independent sort of spirit continues to be alive, and that balance occurs, I think the good news is if the command and control comes back into play, then we'll probably see more leaders and creatives sort of leave to start their own things. But the way to look at it, it's just a big, huge ecosystem, and people are always just interested in pursuing their own visions. And I think it's super exciting from that perspective. So from where we're sitting, it's fantastic to be independent. We don't answer to anyone except for ourselves, and that also allows us to sort of always try to set the bar higher, and we become our own number one competitor to try to make the world a better place for our employees primarily and for our players next.
And we love that.
Chris,
we
I'm
love
not going
that.
to let you off the hook.
Yeah.
Should we expect EA to acquire more studios?
Of course. I mean, we've just welcomed Codemasters, Glue Mobile, Metalhead, Playdemic, all in the last 9 months. So absolutely, consolidation is going to continue to happen. Mergers are going to continue to happen. But I love that answer from Adam, because there's nothing that makes those of us at Electronic Arts, happier than a fiery independent studio that wants to make the Rumbleverse, like Adam just announced yesterday. A very cool new IP. They're going to get out there and create compelling experiences. If they reach a point, like what happened with Glue, reach a point where they would benefit more from being part of an organization that can provide more support, more tools, more marketing, more QA, more infrastructure, then that's going to be an ideal moment. So the way we think about it is does it make financial sense for both parties? When we do is the revenue there? Is the profitability there? Is there an opportunity for growth? Does it make strategic sense? Is there a match between their IP and our IP, or gaps in our IP that makes sense? Does it make cultural sense? In other words, do our teams share internal culture? Do our teams share the same kind of passion and approach to the way we develop? And then do we have confidence in the leadership? And when the answer is going to be yes to all those things, then absolutely, we're going to see more consolidation.
Given that, though, Chris, do you think we will end up seeing some gaming mega mergers where some of the bigger platforms, say an Xbox or a Sony, acquire one of the big game publishers, or where some of the big publishers merge, or is that a harder deal to put together?
Well, I think it's getting harder because the addressable market for gaming, as we were discussing at the beginning of this conversation, continues to grow, and there's all these tangential opportunities, and so the valuations of gaming companies continues to grow. And I think when you get to companies the size of Electronic Arts, that becomes a pretty significant deal if there was going to be a mega merger. We're talking about things that are north of 60, 70, 80 billion dollars. I mean, Bethesda's acquisition of Microsoft's acquisition of Bethesda was a landmark deal. And it was sizable, for the gaming industry. I can't remember exactly where it landed, but it was many, many billions of dollars. But mega mergers, $9.5 billion. So mega mergers are going to be multiples of that. So whenever you get to that kind of altitude, there's not a lot of oxygen up there. So it makes it harder to get deals done.
Right. And so let's shift to a different subject right now. Let's talk a little bit about culture in the gaming industry. There have been a number of high-profile complaints about misconduct at the highest levels of video games companies, from sexual harassment to forced overtime and abusive treatment of workers. How can companies from independent studios to the largest game publishers create better working environments in this industry?
Yeah, I can start from Iron Galaxy's perspective. I mean, it starts from taking responsibility for what you are trying to build in your culture, right? It's about zero tolerance policies for any kind of sexual harassment or misconduct, for anyone not feeling safe in the work environment, right? It's about instilling a firm work-life balance metrics for employees. It's about acknowledging mental health issues that we're facing. And it's really about having a more honest conversation as an industry as a whole. And I think just people taking more responsibility and doing the firm things that are important. I mean, we talked earlier about the creator economy. It's also about the employer economy, right? Of like, we need to create an incredible working environment that people want to come to. And that, I think, is getting harder and harder as we see more of these news breaking. So at Iron Galaxy, we're just trying to do the best we possibly can for our people, create great benefits, great parental leave programs, and a bunch of other things that value our people first. And then hopefully people stick around and want to make cool stuff with us. But I think as an industry, we still have a ton of work to do. And it's about first step, taking responsibility from the top on down.
Yeah, totally agree. And the larger your company gets, the more you've got to be serious about it. And we're very serious about it at Electronic Arts. So we start with we want an environment that's positive and fun and fair and inclusive and safe for everyone. And we want that for our players in our games and in the communities in our games, and we want that for our people as well. And so we try to create that, and we take it very, very seriously. It starts with clear, unequivocal statements, which we've made both internally and externally about our intolerance of any behavior that goes against those values that will constitute harassment of any kind. So you've got to be incredibly clear about that. And then you have to back it up with consequences. You have to back it up with investigating every concern that gets raised. You have to have the right tools in place. For a company of our size, we have to have tools to make it possible for people to skip the line and raise a concern immediately to the very top. So we have a raise a concern system. We have a team that investigates complaints as soon as they come up. This is something that when you reach 10,000 or more people like we have at EA, it's a vigilance that is ongoing, and we're actually feeling good that we've got a system in place that when the next issue arises, we're going to be on top of it. And that's what's most important.
Before we go on to the next question, I just want to correct myself. Microsoft acquisition of Bethesda was $7.5 billion. Apologies to Phil Spencer and Satya Nadella for adding an extra $2 billion into their bill. Obviously, the company's cash pile is such that they could afford it, but nonetheless. I want to ask a little bit about NFTs, digital collectibles, trading and in-game assets. Gaming is obviously an industry where already people are habituated to purchasing really cool armor for their character or a particular, outfit or style. Is gaming, as a result, fertile ground for these kinds of collectibles and for NFTs, or you're not that excited about it?
Well, sure. I mean, the concept of collectibles is something that at Electronic Arts we know a lot about. We've been creating experiences like that in our live services and our games for a really long time. The idea of digital collectibles that go along with your FIFA Ultimate Team, with your Battlefield squad, we've been doing for a very, very long time. But we're at the very earliest stage of this conversation about non-fungible tokens, and the opportunity that to create that as part of a game experience is interesting. But the way we see it is collectibles generate their value from having a high quality asset, B, some scarcity, so it makes it collectible. C, they've got to be authenticated. Got to make sure that it's authentic. If you're collecting things that are scarce, and then fourth, D, you've got to have a rabid fan base. And when those four things are true, you can have an environment where trading things becomes a really exciting and fun thing to do. So we'll see on how the technologies evolve, how the experiences evolve. We're certainly going to start experimenting and studying it. But the trick with NFTs is also going to be, how do we do it in a way that has low to no environmental impact? And that also has to get solved, because we're not going to want to create something that then causes even more issues for the Earthverse, as we proceed. So that's a very important part that's got to get solved as we proceed.
Yeah,
Adam, does it excite you?
I mean, I think it's interesting. I think the idea of it working across games, I still have scratched my head around how that would work, how a FIFA Ultimate Team card would ever work in another game at any point in time. I think in general, the idea of having things that are exclusive, I think oftentimes when something like NFTs come along or the metaverse, we often think like, how do we take advantage of it? A friend once told me if there's a fire hydrant shooting out money, you get in front of it. But the reality of it is that first you need to create a compelling game or a product or a concept, and then if it takes advantage or that technology makes the game that much better, then let's explore it. But let's not do the inverse, man. Let's cool our jets a bit on just getting in front of NFT games, and let's first find a purpose of why it makes the players' experiences better, and then we'll go from there.